So the way we like to think about SEO here is it's the process of driving traffic to a website or web page from free, organic, editorial, or natural search results on search engines. Now, free, that's in quotes because nothing in life is free. You always have to put in some sort of investment. With SEO, it could be monetary. It definitely takes some time, but it's definitely free compared to what you might be paying with AdWords. So, for example, if you're paying for ads on Google with AdWords, every time somebody clicks on your link, you're going to pay Google some amount of money, depending on what keywords you're trying to rank for. With SEO, if you're ranking naturally, every time somebody clicks and visits your website, that's free for you. You don't have to pay every time that somebody visits. And when we talk about SEO, we mainly focus on Google. As you can see, they have by far the greatest market share of basically any major search engine. The one, search engine, it's not typically thought of as a search engine, that's not listed here is YouTube. YouTube actually gets more daily searches than than Bing and Yahoo combined, so it's also owned by Google. And SEO for YouTube can actually be very powerful. We're not going to talk about that today, but we do have a pretty lengthy article coming out on the blog soon, so if you want to learn about YouTube SEO, make sure to go over to LocalVox, click on the blog, subscribe, and you'll get a notification when that goes live. But today we're going to focus mainly on website SEO and Google. So you've likely used Google before, so you know what the search results look like. And it could be a variation of any different sections. So typically with a local search, you're going to see a map at the top, and you can rank for that. And that takes a different effort than ranking in the organic results, which you see below the map. So in the example here, you're going to see some images, you're going to see some news actually, and then some major sites like Yelp. I think this search is for Italian restaurant, and you can see on the right-hand side it's color-coded. The ones in blue are actually local Italian restaurants that have been ranked. So typically, Google can figure out what location you're searching from. So if you search something like Italian restaurant, if you've done your SEO correctly and you're an Italian restaurant, you do have the opportunity to show up on the first page for your website, not just in the maps. So what goes into actually ranking on Google? So SEO starts with your website first, because if you don't have a proper asset for Google to rank, there's no real reason to put in any other effort in terms of off-page SEO or links or citations or anything of that sort. So this is why content is so important. It's really one of the most important things you can focus on. You want to publish quality, original content that's actually worth ranking, or else it's not going to rank. It doesn't have to be the next great novel like War and Peace, but it does need to be valuable, and it needs to be what people are looking for so that Google can decide it's worth serving up to them. You also always want to focus on keywords, because if you're not focusing on keywords to rank, then you don't even know what you should be ranking for. The thing is, Google doesn't have elves that crawl the internet deciding what websites should rank where and what the topic of the website is. They have an algorithm, and that algorithm is robotic, and you have to explicitly tell it what the topic is for your website, and that's where keywords come in, and that's why they are so powerful. You also want to keep your content fresh, up to date, and really the more content you publish, the better. Google actually does have a bias towards fresh content and sites that update content regularly, so that's also very important. And you can use content to establish yourself as the authority in your vertical. So one way to do that is to create content that basically answers questions. So if you're a plumber, you might have content on how to install a toilet, for example. There will be people that literally type in that phrase into Google, how do I install a toilet? And you have the opportunity to come up in the search results for that. And that builds authority for your website, that drives traffic to you, that establishes you as the authority in that industry. And if it's a local search, somebody might decide, you know what, I don't want to do this myself. This person clearly knows what they're doing, so I'm going to hire them. One thing to note about duplicate content, a lot of people think that Google doesn't like sites that copy other sites. So you have content that's on your website that's also somewhere else, they're going to penalize you. That's actually not the fact. It's not a good practice, but the duplicate penalty content comes into play when you have multiple pages on your own website that essentially say the same thing. So this basically was born out of webmasters basically publishing the same site or same page on their site over and over again, switching up a keyword here and there and trying to rank multiple pages for multiple keywords with essentially the same content. That doesn't work anymore. So if you can fit that content within the same page, that's what Google wants to see. In terms of structure, you want your website to be crawlable, obviously. If Google can't crawl it, it can't index it, it can't rank it. A good way to set up your website is to think of it in terms of an online directory. So if you have, sticking with the plumber example, if you have a national plumber directory, you have your main first page, then that might link out to different states, then each of those states might link out to different cities within the state. That's a good structure and architecture for a website. Now, I'm not saying you should set up your website as a directory, but think about how your website's content fits within relation to other content on your site. And, you might have topics and subtopics. Most small businesses might only have 4 or 5 pages, so that might not apply. But if you do have a lot of content, think about how it fits in with other content on your site. Mobile friendliness, insanely important. Google even just launched a mobile checker to make sure that your site is mobile friendly. Also, mobile browsing has actually overtaken desktop browsing, so you definitely want to be mobile friendly, because otherwise you'll be missing out on a lot of traffic. And really, Google has a lot of focus on user experience these days. It's gotten a lot more experienced. Its algorithm has gotten a lot more complex, and if people are coming onto your website and clicking off right away, especially on mobile devices, then you're going to be missing out on a lot of searches through mobile. Kind of related to that is speed. Again, if your website's slow to load, if somebody clicks on it, the site doesn't load right away, they click off, they bounce off, Google's going to think your site's not worthy of ranking because nobody's staying on it to consume the content. The NAP, which is the name, area, and phone, is very important for local businesses. That's really the main signal of where your business is located. So because Google localizes its results quite frequently, you definitely want to tell it where you're located. If you're more of a national business, you still probably want to include that, just because it's a pretty strong trust indicator. You're not just some spammy website. You're an actual business that has an address that people can contact in case they have a problem. And then finally, in terms of the actual code on your website, your titles for every page should always contain keywords that you're trying to rank for. If the keyword is actually at the beginning of the title, that's even better. But you also want to make sure that it's relevant to the topic of the page. You're not just sticking random titles to try to rank that have nothing to do with the content of the page. And the same thing goes for the description. You want to include a keyword. This isn't as powerful strictly in terms of ranking boosts as it once used to be, but it's still a very valuable thing because that shows up in the search results, and you can get people to click through to your website with an enticing description. And actually, clicks can affect rankings, so it kind of indirectly does affect rankings, but it definitely affects how many people visit your website. And finally, the architecture. In terms of the code, you want your headers to be nested. So if you have an H2 tag, which is a header within your website, that should follow an H1, and H3 should be nested within an H2. And just in general, you want clean code, which helps Google crawl your website quicker and more efficiently. Plus, it allows for faster websites, which, again, we talked about. Speed is very important. So once you have your on-page set up, you can move on to your off-page. So these are external factors, basically signals that Google takes into account to see if your website is worth ranking over your competitors. So the first thing is trust. It obviously wants to rank quality websites that have authority in the field, that, again, people aren't landing on your website and clicking off right away because it's not what they're looking for. Your website needs to have a good history of trust, and really you're not stealing content from other people. You want to make sure you're not hacked, because Google will actually place a note in its results that this site may be hacked, which I personally would never click on a site that says it might be hacked, and I hope most people wouldn't. So you want to make sure that you stay safe and you protect your website from piracy, and you're not really doing any shady activities yourself. Social has become increasingly important over the years. It used to not have that much of effect, but Google does recognize that social activity basically drives the internet these days. Your reputation is important. If somebody authoritative in your field is sharing your content, mentioning you, basically referring people to your business, that goes a long way. Reviews obviously go a long way. You don't want terrible reviews popping up, because first of all, people won't be visiting your website, and it's kind of a bad trust indicator for Google. And you want a good presence on social networks. So Facebook, Twitter. First of all, these are all opportunities to link back to your website. It's good opportunities to mention the location of your business, but it's also a good opportunity to keep up the freshness of the content that your business publishes, because again, Google has a freshness bias. Another thing to take into account is a personalization. So again, we mentioned that Google personalizes its results. It can take into account what country you're in, what locality you're in when you're searching, and if your website's optimized for a specific location, you're better off in terms of trying to rank in that location. It can also take into account devices. So again, we talked about mobile and its increasing importance. And it can actually track how often people go to your website and come back. So if you have a lot of repeat visitors, that's obviously generally a good sign for Google that your website's valuable enough to come back to. And it also might serve up that website more often to those people that have visited. So if you're getting a lot more repeat visitors, you might be getting a lot more repeat customers. And finally, links. Historically, this has been the most powerful off-page factor for ranking a website. It still is the most powerful, but now that the algorithm has gotten a lot more complex, there's obviously other factors that come into play, like social, like trust, like user experience. But links are still the most powerful thing for ranking. It's very important that you're careful with this, because there are shortcuts that people try to take and buy links that are not so quality. They'll bombard their website with links, and they might rank for a week or two, and they get all excited because the results were so quick. They get a lot less excited when Google penalizes them, and they completely drop off the results. So you want links that are quality and relevant to your industry, and then that's a lot more powerful and a much better long-term strategy. So let's talk about some myths, because really there's two kinds of people that are in local business: those that think SEO can work for them, and those that think it's a waste of time or it won't work for them, so they don't even bother. So the first myth is that SEO is for big businesses that have big budgets. And this just doesn't happen to be the case. This is obviously, it depends on a case-by-case basis. So if you're trying to compete for keywords like car insurance and you're going up against national companies that probably spend millions of dollars on SEO, you're going to need a pretty big budget. But most businesses aren't doing that. Most businesses are small in a small local area, and it can actually be fairly cheap to rank in those areas, especially when your competition doesn't have SEO knowledge. And you being at this presentation already gives you a competitive advantage in that regard. So again, depending on your industry, you really don't need a massive budget to do SEO. Another myth is, and it's kind of perpetuated by SEO agencies oftentimes, is that you can take shortcuts to get quick ranking increases and get quick SEO results. Like I mentioned, this is technically a half-truth, because you can take shortcuts like spamming with links, and it can get you short-term results. And then Google catches on to you, and your results are gone, and now you're kind of screwed, and you have to put in a lot of effort trying to dig yourself out of a hole. The safer way to do it is to take a long-term approach, build it up slow and steady. Localvox ranks for local internet marketing at #1, and it's not because we spam the internet and try to get backlinks from every possible source. It's because we have over 5 years of, history of publishing quality content and outreach and getting natural backlinks, and that's why Google recognizes that, we're a valuable resource, and they put us at #1. Another myth is that SEO requires a huge number of keywords and backlinks. The keyword thing is really an issue because, honestly, most small businesses especially should just focus on a few main keywords, and as long as you're publishing good content, some of the more related key terms that you're not even necessarily targeting, you're going to start ranking for. And a huge number of backlinks, again, you don't want a huge amount of low-quality links. It's a lot better to get a small amount of high-quality links. And with local businesses that aren't necessarily in very competitive markets where the competitors don't necessarily know what they're doing, you can often get away with just a few quality links, and you'll outrank your competition. Another myth is that SEO will cannibalize other online marketing traffic drivers, and this is absolutely not the case. In fact, SEO should be a part of a more holistic marketing approach, and you could really say that about any marketing, right? So if I start doing AdWords, that might cannibalize my SEO. In reality, it gives you a much better opportunity to get in front of buyers because you're going to own more real estate. And you're going to get more clicks, more traffic, more leads, more sales. And in the long run, if you do a cost-benefit analysis, sometimes SEO is just much cheaper than other factors. So if you're going to focus on one, this isn't the worst possible marketing tactic to focus on. But in general, the more marketing tactics you focus on, the more channels you go after, the better off your business will be. Another myth is that SEO focuses on the algorithm, so Google's algorithm, not the searcher. And this is a huge myth. The way I typically like to put it is you should write content for people and edit for search engines. So there's no reason for you to write content that's going to rank if somebody comes to your page and it's all gibberish and flooded with keywords and they can't make sense out of it. They're going to click off, and you're definitely not going to make any sales out of it. What you want to do is write content that's actually going to establish yourself as an authority. You want to convince people that you're the person they should buy from. And then after the fact, go in and add a keyword here and there, see how you can optimize it, but make sure that humans can actually read it and use the content. And finally, the big myth is SEO is impossible for local business. Again, based on the screenshot we saw earlier with the Italian restaurants ranking on the first page, along with behemoths like Yelp, and some of the other myths that we looked at, like you need a huge budget or a ton of links, SEO is very possible for local business, and not only is it possible, but if you know what you're doing, it can be very powerful and actually quite easy to beat out your competition and outrank them and get more business. So let's talk about a few important SEO changes that have taken place over the last few years. Obviously, the big one that I've mentioned a few times is mobile friendliness. The amount of smartphones owned in the U.S. is staggering, and that's only growing. 50% of local searches happen to be on mobile devices, and overall browsing is actually greater on mobile devices than it is on desktop devices. And this is the big stat to focus on. 83% of mobile searchers want to purchase immediately. And you might have experienced that from, for yourself. If you're driving around, or hopefully you're not Googling while you're driving, but say you're parked and you're Googling for the best, coffee shop in the area or the best restaurant in the area, you're going to want to go there ASAP, right? That's why you're searching for it. And that's how most mobile users are. They're searching for something that they want, if not immediately, then in the very short term. Another big change, and this one's fairly recent, is the design of Google Maps. So Google used to show 7 listings. Now they took a more mobile approach to their design, even in their desktop results. And it's gotten a lot more competitive. So this is where knowledge of SEO and optimization of your local listings and directory listings really comes into play, because before you could just rank in the top 7 and maybe you can garner some attention by having good reviews showing up in your listing. Now there's only 3 listings in the map. And the chances of somebody clicking through to see more listings are obviously not as high as if you're showing up in the top 3 already. So this really places a far greater importance on local SEO. Another, I think, probably mobile-motivated and also money-motivated change is Google got rid of the right-hand AdWords. So there used to be ads on the right-hand side when you would do searches on Google. Those are no longer there. They did add an additional spot at the top. So there used to be 3 ads at the top. Now there's a 4th. So this does a couple things. It decreases the real estate that people can pay for with ads, and that might increase competition, obviously. It's going to possibly increase the amount you have to pay for that, which adds more value to SEO. So again, if you want to buy that real estate, you're going to have to probably pay a little more. So SEO becomes even more valuable in that regard. Finally, social media. Again, Google recognizes that social is basically driving the internet these days, between Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the apps. And it used to be that really even up until maybe a year ago, it was a debate of whether mentions would influence rankings. Now the debate's over. So mentions on Facebook definitely influence rankings. Direct traffic from Facebook influences rankings. The fact that people are sharing your content influences rankings. And Google has gone so far as to actually start indexing tweets within its results. So that goes to show you that Google definitely recognizes that social activity is extremely important. So now let's get into some strategies to actually reach the top of the results to get some better business results. So first things first, for a local business, your local listings are extremely important. So you're going to have your name, address, local phone number on your website, and you also want to have that listed on local directories. So major directories like Yelp, like Yellow Pages, like City Search, you want to be listed on all those, and you want those listings to be up to date, you want them to be accurate, and you want them to be consistent across every directory that you're listed on. Now, you can go through and check all of that manually, or you can use our free tool over at Localvox. You can go to localvox.com/free-SEO-report. You just put in your business information there. We'll scan it real quickly, and you can see how your directories are performing, whether they're consistent, whether they're accurate, and what actions you need to take to resolve any issues you might have. Google My Business, obviously extremely important for local SEO. This is basically what's going to feed into the Maps section of Google. And it's also an opportunity for you to directly basically upload any information you want into Google's system, right? It's basically direct communication with Google. So again, you want all of your business information to be up to date, name, address, phone number. you want to add photos, add reviews, highlight positive reviews, obviously. You can even give a virtual tour of your business within Google My Business, and it makes things much easier to manage, and you can even view insights and analytics of how your business is performing within Google. Again, keywords we talked about, these are extremely important because without focusing on specific keywords, you don't know what you should be ranking for or have a goal for ranking. So how do you come up with these keywords? First things first, you can put yourself into your customer's shoes. You know, if you were looking for an accountant or a doctor or a plumber, what would you search on Google? You can also go into your company's mission statement and see, you know, what did we talk about when we first started the company, if you have one of those. And that'll provide you with a good seed list of keywords, and then you can go into Google's Keyword Planner, which is a free tool that they provide, dump those in there, and get a whole ton of keyword ideas completely for free, and see which one of those you might want to rank for and which are worth going after. Posting fresh content. We've discussed this also, so Google does have a bias towards sites and companies that keep up to date. It tells them that, you know, my company's active, it's still alive, it's still going strong, and we have things to share. So share things of value. If you have any deals or coupons and you hold events, you can share event information, share photos and videos, store collateral like menus and specials, or even tips, which people obviously find very useful. So if you're a restaurant and you share a recipe, for example, that can be very helpful. Basically, you want to keep posting valuable information because, again, Google finds that very valuable, and it tells it that you're an active business and that, you know, people should come visit you and your website because you have information to share with them. Links we also discussed. You want quality links. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. You don't want to buy a whole bunch of cheap links and send them to your website because while it might get you results very quickly and decent results for about a week, you're going to have a very long time of suffering through getting penalized. So a few things you can do is network with other bloggers in your industry. You can use a tool called Help a Reporter Out, which basically you sign up for a newsletter and they will email you questions from reporters, and if there's a question regarding your industry, you can go ahead and answer that as an industry expert. Most of the time they will link back to your website as a source, which is a great way to get links and establish yourself as an authority. And you can just do, you know, outreach to local businesses and members of the media in your local area and try to get news coverage that way. You also want to grow your social footprint. So again, social media is becoming increasingly important, as I've mentioned. So social gives you credibility, it gives you authority if people are retweeting your content, sharing your content, and it tells the search engine algorithms that you are that authority figure. Because if you know, links to your content keep popping up because people are sharing it, then obviously you have something worth sharing and you probably have a pretty valuable website that should be ranking higher. And again, Google is indexing tweets now, so if you start tweeting and you tweet something, you know, keyword optimized and relevant, you might actually get some attention and traffic that way. Finally, you want to ask for feedback. You don't, again, this is another shortcut that I've seen companies do. You don't want to pay for reviews. You want legitimate reviews that people that have actually bought from you are leaving. And in general, this is just good customer service. You know, even if it's a bad review, you might get, you know, an idea of how to improve business going forward. But especially if it's a good review, you want to ask customers to post that to Google, to Facebook, to Yelp. So when you have a customer and they've purchased from you, and you can typically tell if they're happy or not, especially if they're happy, ask them for a review. And then just one final mention, again, on mobile, it's extremely important. Google launched its mobile-friendly test, so that tells you how important it is and how much Google values mobile-friendly sites. It's even in the process of launching a completely new way to present mobile content, which is accelerated mobile content. So that's probably not something any small local businesses have to worry about for a while, but it does show how much of an emphasis Google puts on mobile friendliness. So, have a mobile-friendly website with a clean navigation, minimal design elements. You don't want things taking forever to load because, again, speed is another issue. And you want people to have the ability to click to call right from within your website on a phone and, or link to an email. You don't want people having to switch between a bunch of different screens to call you or email you on a phone, because that's not obviously very convenient on a mobile device, certainly much less so than if you were browsing on a desktop device. So make sure your website is very mobile friendly, because that's really where most of the browsing is happening these days.